Hello. Welcome back to the live podcast stage. I'm your podcast stage host, Brandon Peters.
Woo!
Yes.
Brandon!
We're about to go active again, and we're going to go all through the afternoon now. I don't think we may have little breaks in between. But coming up here at 2, Rachel Friend here will be up on stage talking about her podcast, the Five-ish Fangirls podcast, and the Oscars Gold Standard podcast at 2. And at 3 p.m., good old Allison Tabitha down there, the wonderful. She'll be joining me for a special episode of the Brandon Peters Show at 3 p.m. But now at 1 p.m., I have what is it? This is a staple of the podcast stage, right?
Yeah.
Staple, not stable.
Staple.
Yeah.
Staple.
That's us.
We're not the
about
staple
farm animals
facts.
on Friday.
It's true.
But ever since I've been doing this, there's always been an established fact show to schedule, record, to conquer, and we've been through PopCons, Fort Wayne, and Indy.
That's right.
Together, and I love this group, and I'm very excited to bring them here. So take it away, Josh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Established Facts podcast here at Indy PopCon 2020. Is everybody having a good time this weekend so far? Round of applause for having a good time. Okay. For those of you who did not clap, you've got a few more hours left to have a good time. All right. Otherwise, the good time police will find you and probably throw you in some sort of Mandalorian jail of some kind because they're right behind us. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed Indy PopCon. As you heard Brandon say, we have been longtime attendees and contributors to coming and hanging out and having a great time at Indy PopCon. We were at the first one. We were at the one in Fort Wayne. We've been at every other one since then and before then and all that. So we're so glad that you guys have gotten a chance to attend and are here now with us. So we are a gaming podcast from here in central Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, and we talk about all sorts of different gaming topics. But before we get into talking about some gaming stuff, which I'm really excited to reveal to everyone up here, because we, like we do, we had a really long 3-second discussion about what we were going to talk about before we got up here. So anyway, before we get started with that, let's go ahead and start down at the end of the table, and we'll work this way and introduce everybody on the mics.
This is Josh. Okay, there it is.
I'm Avital. Hi, I'm Princess Kaytie.
That's right. And I, of course, am your host, Big Don. On the Established Facts Indy PopCon 2022 episode, I would like to talk a little bit about introducing people into gaming. We get a chance to meet a lot of really great people here during the weekend. Especially, I do have to comment on a side note. It has been very, very cool to be at the booth and for people, especially people in cosplay, to come up who have spoken with our friend Avital and are like, hey, we want to meet up and we want to hang out. And then all of a sudden we've got like 30 people in costume in front of our booth and stuff. So we thank you guys all for dressing up and doing all kinds of really cool stuff like that. But in the time that we get a chance to talk to people, we ask a lot of questions about what sort of games do you like to play? Are you into gaming and stuff? And sometimes we get a lot of information. Sometimes we are meeting people who haven't gotten into gaming. On Saturday, Joshy and I got a chance to host a panel called So You Want to Be a DM. And we got a chance to sit with a couple of other dungeon masters and game masters and talk a little bit about getting into running games or being involved in role-playing games. And I think it would be really fun for us to talk a little bit about some of the things that we like to do when we're introducing new people into gaming, especially in a convention center setting where maybe you're traveling someplace and you're going to be meeting new people and you want to sit down and play a quick game. Because I find that games are a really great vehicle to get to know people without it being so... without there feeling like there's a lot of tension, or there's an expectation. We're all just hanging out, having a good time, playing a card game, and getting to know each other. So I'd like to kind of know, I guess starting out, what sort of games do you like to introduce people to that maybe are unfamiliar with the gaming genre, and that can be any type of gaming genre. I'll let you go ahead and select that. But when you're talking to somebody who's brand new to playing a game, what sort of games do you like to introduce them into, or what I like to call, what sort of gateway games do you like to bring to the table?
So I personally am a big fan of the rules light stuff. So anything related to, Quags is one of the first role-playing game systems that I've used. It's
Stole mine.
Still one. It's a quick game system with a word in the middle, but it uses a D20 and a single sheet of paper, and that's how you roll up and get your role-playing games kind of going. I think something like that is a great tabletop role-playing game to start with. I also think that if people are still kind of shy to the tabletop role-playing game, a game like Fiasco is a great way to just get people into the idea of playing a character. And they even now have it simplified down to a card-based system instead of all the dice rolling and stuff where you draw out cards to build out your relationships. Board gaming-wise, you can never go wrong with the stuff they played as children or card games. And when it comes to video games, the more silly, the better. I think Overcooked is one of the silliest games that you can play, and I know it is cooperative, but it is also both funny and stressful at the same time. So all of that relates to playing a game that decreases the stress level so that you can increase your relaxation level.
I think Overcooked is cooperative chaos. I think that should be the term.
Well, now Overcooked is on Switch, right? So you can get it on Switch and go to a friend's house or bring it with you wherever you're going to go and hang out and play.
Yeah, you can also play Overcooked online. I've watched Twitch streamers play.
Oh, okay.
It. Yeah.
So I'm familiar with the Xbox One X version of it. That's what I play. And I think Joshy's even got it on. Do you have it on PlayStation or you have it on Xbox?
I have it. It's technically on both now, but
Okay.
I bought it for PS5.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I said you stole mine, Josh, because of Quags. No, the first time I ever played a role-playing game was in 2012 at my first Gen Con, and I didn't play any tabletop role-playing games when I was a kid. Simply just, I don't know, I wasn't around it. And I think that if somebody had tried to introduce to me the character sheet that I have now for the campaign I'm in with Pathfinder, I would have been like, this is so confusing. I have no idea what's happening. This looks like a lot of work. And it's not like even Pathfinder is the worst or most difficult system, you know what I mean? But it was Saturday night at Gen Con, and they're like, well, Avital's never played a role-playing game, so...
I think Derek ran it.
Derek ran it, and we used Quags because it is very easy to throw a game together, and he just asked us what genre we wanted it to be, and we said sci-fi, and then we put together a cast of characters that were a crew on a ship and played a game, and it was very fun. It was a lot of fun. And that was my first time, and then I got pulled in. And then after that, I got pulled into the Pathfinder and everything. So, for role-playing... Oh, also because the only time I've ever run a game, I ran it in Quags, because that's where I started, and it was at Fear the Con. It was my first time. And later that year, when we were, going on vacation, my mom is because I was telling her about the campaign that I had run, we're driving out to see my family, and she's like, could you run that for the family? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. Sorry. I have the stuff. So I literally ran the same campaign for my family members while we were at this place where this game was set. Because it was set in Lake of the Ozarks, and we were on summer vacation at the Lake of the Ozarks, and I ran this little fantasy game that was set in the Lake of the Ozarks. And they actually seemed to have a pretty good time. They were a little bit confused about some things, but Quag specifically is a real chill system for starting out with role playing.
So, piggybacking off of what Avital said for
getting people into role-playing games, I feel like somewhere like Gen Con is a really good place to bring a first-timer, because you're going to have a lot of campaigns where the GM says, hey, here, I've made this character sheet and all of your information is on it. You don't have to roll for any of your stats. This is who you are. If you have questions, get with me. That's a really good way to get people into a role-playing game if you are not necessarily somebody who wants to run one yourself or something like that. For getting people into board games, I'm a bad person to talk to. One of my favorite stories about board gaming is when my husband and I first started dating. He was a huge video game player. I was a huge board game player. I thought his skills at video games would transfer to board games, and the first game I introduced him to was Tyrants of the Underdark, which is both a slight deck building, the very first board game we ever played together, slight deck building and worker management game, and it was stressful. So, if I could go back, I would say, let's play Catan, or, literally anything other than an incredibly intense board game. And then like Don said about, or Josh said about video games, something fun, like my husband and I both have Switches, so just getting people into playing maybe Mario Party, Mario Kart, some of the just easy stuff. If people are like, well, I don't like video games, well, have you tried this? Have you tried a party-style game? Maybe you don't like first-person shooters, but you might like playing something like Splatoon or something like that, because it's not the same type of shooter. It's more of a fun environment.
Nice. I like all of those suggestions. I think that as far as my go-tos for introducing people into tabletop board games and stuff like that, one of my go-to gateway games is always King of Tokyo. It is, if you understand Yahtzee mechanics, it's a very easy game to pick up. It's a lot of fun. And then the idea that you get to play this massive kaiju that is trying to destroy the city of Tokyo and every other monster that's trying to get into it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So that's probably one of my a good example of a gateway game for me. I also like games like Love Letter and Coup and stuff like that, where you can, they're small box games, so you can throw them in a bag to bring with you anywhere you are. They're easy to explain. The mechanics are simple, and you can. I really love your addition of Catan as well. Catan is a really good if you're getting into resource management style games that aren't Monopoly, and you want to actually encourage people to get into board gaming. Catan is a very what's that?
Unlike Monopoly.
Unlike Monopoly, right?
I hate that game.
Catan is not nearly as much of a table flip game as a game like Monopoly might be.
You can play Catan with people you like. You play Monopoly with people you hate.
That's right. That's right.
Or want to hate.
Or want to hate. That's correct. And then I would say, as far as role-playing goes, I think that Quags is a great system to teach somebody on. Fate is also a very good system to teach somebody on. It's a very simple, straightforward character build. You use some D6 dice with pluses, minuses, and nothing on them. And that's a good system to learn on. I tend to feel like, though, as somebody who's adventurous in my gaming, that I'm down for learning, even if it's kind of crunchy and it takes a little bit of time. I don't know that I would want to jump into like the deep pool of GURPS or something like that. That can be a lot, at least not as an intro game. But something like Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder are kind of household names when it comes to RPing, and it kind of gives you the opportunity to. Wow, there's a sorry for the interruption. We're obviously live at PopCon, and there is a 10-foot goose walking down.
Untitled goose costume.
You think it's from the Untitled Goose Game?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's what?
They shook their head. Yes.
It's
real.
real
Yeah,
goose
that's right.
hours. Yeah.
So anyway, I think that if you have a good dungeon master or game master who takes care to make sure that you are that you're communicating well to the new players at the table, and also if you have players that are experienced at the game and want to contribute to that experience for the new player, that's always helpful.
That makes a big difference.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Because that's what you were actually. My very first game master, the very first role-playing game I ever played was a Pathfinder campaign.
Yeah.
And you were the GM for that. And you were like, okay, so these are all the people that have been playing for years. people. This is Kaytie. Kaytie, these are people.
Right. And I think I even made you sit next to me in case you had a question, but then also you were sitting next to some other friends that I was like, okay, if I'm not available to answer a question, they can answer a question. And outside of that, if there's anything that you need, we're just going to play pretend for the next 4 hours, Yeah, so I think those are all great games to kind of be introductions. Now, can you guys think of a convention experience where you were playing in a game? And I know most of us are. Does anybody out here go to Gen Con?
Yeah.
We got one person who just walked by who goes to Gen Con, and Zach. Right on.
And
cool.
Elias.
Over there.
And Elias. Sorry, Elias. Yeah, so if you haven't been to, and Indy PopCon has got a great open gaming area as well. And obviously, conventions like Gen Con are also centrally located in Indianapolis, yes, but centrally focused on gaming. So can you guys think of a good example of a good experience you had learning a new game at a convention where, there can tend to be a little bit of pressure to want to do well the first time you play or something like that, or really try and grasp the understanding of a game? Can you guys think of an example that you have experienced where you were learning something at a convention and it was a really good experience?
I believe that I shared this story in our GM panel we did. I share this story frequently because I think what I learned was almost more invaluable than learning the system itself. So I think it was actually the second year of Pathfinder was my first attempt at doing the Pathfinder Society. I'd never done Pathfinder Society, so I'd had a little bit of play in the Pathfinder first edition, played Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, so I have a bit of a basis on how the game is supposed to go, but I wanted to find out about the Society. For those who don't know, the Pathfinder Society is an organized system in which you can play Pathfinder characters and come in and out of scenarios that are all tied to a general story, particularly done over seasons, usually annually. So I sit in and I show up with my first level rogue. I got 9 hit points. And they had no parties available for a first party, but they had a first level, but they had a couple of tables that had third levels. They're like, well, we can give you, you can either play your first level or we can give you a pre-gen first level and then you can apply this credit later or, well, no, this is actually a first through fourth, so that should be fine. I said, no, I'll play my character. And you do understand. Oh, no, it was the third year because it was the introduction of the mythic traits, which was kind of their expansion on epic, like that was done in D&D. So anyways, like, no, I'll sit down. I'm okay. This is going to be a pretty rough scenario. I said, that's fine. I've played games before. So that's whatever. So we get 4.5 hours into this game. And all the third levels are fighting off the monsters and doing their thing. And I'm like, I'm weak and can't hurt these people. What can I do? It's my job to crank the ballista. And if we fired off the ballista, it would get shot out into these monsters that all the 12th level characters were fighting. I'm like, yeah, I'm helping. Well, this mythic demon walks up and drops a fireball on the ballista. And I'm touching the ballista. All right, make your reflex save. I rolled a 9. You rolled a what? So I rolled a 9. And you're a rogue? Yep. But I only have evasion. So I'm taking all of it. She goes, all right. She rolls 23 points of damage. Pathfinder First Edition, you died when you equaled negative your con score, which was a 13. With 9 plus 13 is 22. I took 23. Okay, I'm dead. And she's like, wait, what? No, seriously. I just got incinerated. I am so sorry. I said, why? It's a convention. And that was the first time I learned that very important lesson. If you're willing to take your character into a convention setting, be willing to leave without them.
Yeah, that's a fact. That is a fact. Avital? Princess Kaytie?
I don't.
Wanna go, or?
Well, I am not adventurous on trying new things. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, however, I just like the first game that I played at Fear the Con. I think it was my first year.
Indeed.
In case you didn't hear that on the mics, we had a Leroy Jenkins run past.
We did.
So,
We did.
anyways, but I was just
We'll
nervous
find him
about
later.
playing at a convention with other people, but Josh ran a game, and so he's my friend, and I know I'm comfortable, and I ended up getting to run away with the doctor, so bonus. But I tend to stick with what I'm comfortable with at cons, just because of social anxiety and everything. So if I'm trying new things, it's probably just going to be with friends.
Sure.
See, I am the exact opposite. And every year at Gen Con, I'm like, what games have I literally never heard of before in my life? Let's sign up for those. Because my thought process is, well, I know how to play these other games, but maybe have some of them at home, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, I've never heard of Penguin Knife Fight. Let's play it. That kind of stuff.
Is that a real game?
It is.
You're
It
an
is.
improv troupe.
Maybe
Yeah.
they've made a game, but yeah, there's.
Oh, wow.
I swear I've seen it on the Gen Con
Yeah.
list. But one of my favorites every year, like I said, we do games we've never played before, and we really enjoyed doing it. Last year at Gen Con, we had played the game New York Slice for the first time, and it's not a new game; it's been out for a minute. But we enjoyed it so much that we signed up for the New York Slice tournament, and I ended up taking third in the tournament, and I won a copy of the game to take home with me. And I think that was probably the most fun thing I've ever had with a new game, where we're like, all right, cool, we played this game on Thursday, the tournament's on Friday, let's get into it. And I got top 3.
Have you played it since?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh man. So I think that probably one of my most memorable, situations where I was playing a new game, or at least new to me game. A couple of years ago, I was at a convention that had they were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and they were playing this 2-hour special Dungeons and Dragons game called Dungeons and Doggos. And
I'm playing that this year.
yeah, it is one of the coolest variants. I believe it's published by Steamforge Games, who at one time before WizKids was doing it was the ones who were crafting and creating the miniatures that Critical Role used for, I think, Campaign 2. So they came up with this rule set called Dungeons and Doggos, or Dungeons and Doggies, something like that, where everyone plays a dog, but is a hero class. And I got to play the Paladin Saint Bernard that ran around with a sword in his mouth trying to chop rats who were fighting us. And it was a lot of fun. It was me and our friend Kayla who were playing with 4 other players that we had never met in a system that we were only just barely familiar with, because it was 5e and 5e, and I hadn't played a ton of 5e. But it was so much fun just to put myself in the mindset of this big old silly Saint Bernard who was running around trying to save the life of the Chihuahua rogue that was trying to sneak attack the woman in the inn who was trying to chop us up with cleavers. It was a pretty impressive. Not to give too many spoilers, but it was a pretty impressive module. It was a lot of fun.
I don't think ours is that. We're supposed
Okay.
to save our friend who's been falsely in prison for knocking over trash cans.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, that sounds a little different. That's been my experience with that sort of thing. Now, kind of building off of that, are there games that you normally stray away from when you're trying to introduce somebody, or themes that maybe you stray away from when you're introducing somebody into a specific genre of gaming or a type of game in general?
I am of the opinion, because I don't like it, that horror games are not great to introduce people. Because especially Call of Cthulhu is one I can think of, and I've played it. I enjoy Call of Cthulhu when I've played it. I'm not big into horror games, but I've also reached a point where I just like playing with people. But Call of Cthulhu can be very cerebral, let alone the story that's being told. The fact that certain things can cause you to go insane, and now you're having to think about and imagine yourself going insane is almost like defining insanity in itself. So I try not to start there. We might work our way to that, but we try not to start there.
That seems fair. I would never play those games anyway, but it's fine. That's just me. I don't like scary things.
I'm sad that I posed myself this question because I can't really think of a game that I oh, no, that's not true. There are some games that I probably would recommend somebody who's a first-time gamer not just jump but with both feet in. Games like Warhammer 40K
Or Tyrants
Well,
of
sure.
the Underdark.
Tyrants of the Underdark.
Sure.
Things that have, if you're a new gamer or you're just getting into certain types of gaming, obviously there's exception to the rule, but I definitely don't recommend getting into something that has a massive rule base. So games that would be considered crunchy games. So like I mentioned it earlier, GURPS is a role-playing system that you can use in pretty much any theme, but it has a pretty vast and robust rule set. Then games like Warhammer 40K. And where there's a really deep amount of strategy. Not to, again, like I said, there's exceptions to every rule, but games like that I would say, are not easy games to get into and understand on your first go. I think there are examples of games that you can play that are kind of like the stair step up to those. That you can kind of use to guide into if you look at the minis from 40K and you're like, wow, those are really cool, I'd love to get into a game like that. There are other games that you can get into that kind of feed into the Warhammer hobby or the war games hobby kind of thing.
And that's building on the Warhammer example. I feel like introducing people to a game that has so many components you need to acquire to play can also be kind of a turnoff for them because if you want to get them into gaming, maybe introduce them to something that's like, here, everything you need is in this box. You don't need anything else. There might be an expansion pack they release later, but having something like that or like the Star Wars mini games where it's like, okay, so you've got this, but surprise, there are 5,200 other things that you can get. Like you can buy all of these things and this one does that and that one does this. Can just be overwhelming for somebody who isn't into that genre of games.
Yeah. And it also really depends on like the people that you are trying to introduce to a game, because my sister once gave me One Night Ultimate Werewolf, the game.
Yeah.
Right? Which I had not played before, but she was like, bring it to family vacation and we can play it. I hadn't played it, so I was reading the instructions and trying to teach it to other people, and it did not go well.
No. One Night Ultimate Werewolf is difficult anyways.
And they also were simply not understanding like the theme and point of the game.
Sure.
Some of my like aunts and stuff like, what's the point? And I'm like,
It's a deception-based game.
Like
right,
that's the okay.
Was it Ultimate Werewolf or was it One Night Werewolf?
It was One Night.
One Night, okay. Because One Night's the one where you have to keep your hand on the token throughout the night, and then the tokens can shuffle around.
I honestly don't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was One Night. I don't remember.
Okay. Well,
she's tried to shut it out of her memory, Josh.
That's fair.
What she's trying to say.
I'm not trying to
I've
bring
never played
it
it again. I don't know.
I just thought of this from a board gaming perspective. Introducing someone into board gaming, do not bring out a game that takes more time to set up than it does to play.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And also, when looking at the time frame of a game, which most games nowadays have it printed on the side or the back or the lid, always add it. Wow. English. Okay. Always add in probably another 15 to 20 minutes into the playtime if it's a fairly simple game. Because you want time. I just taught some friends of mine to play Wingspan. Well, Wingspan plays in like 45 minutes to an hour. But when you're teaching somebody, you want to take it a little slower so that they can understand the mechanics. Right. So, we played it in an hour and 15, an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. All still had a really good time. We all still figured out the correct way to play. But taking into account the time frame on those boxes, in my opinion, usually is for people who have played the game and are looking to play a game.
And only play the game.
And only play the game, right. That is one thing that we have discovered. Joshy and I, we attend a little private get-together every year with some friends of ours where we're playing board games all weekend, and we can sit down with a game that's supposed to take 45 minutes, but because we're visiting and hanging out, it takes us 2 hours.
That's right.
And that's just because we don't know how to take our turn, and we just talk
Yeah, like
a lot.
I watched a streamer playing a game with his friend. The two of them were playing this game, and it's like when they started the game, it's like, do you want the short version that's like 30 minutes, the medium version that's 60, or the long version that's 90 minutes? And they're like, oh, we'll go for the long version. They played for over 3 hours.
3 hours later.
3 hours later. But also because they're also just like back and forthing and like talking about stuff. And I mean, there is probably some extra time because they're streaming and also talking to the audience, but still, that's more than double the time the game said to play. You know, you got to keep those things in mind.
So I'm going to veer off to a slightly different path, but still within the same realm and theme of what we're talking about. Now, I mentioned earlier that we've gotten a chance to meet a lot of really great cosplayers throughout the weekend. So in getting into something like cosplay, if you're introducing somebody into that world, especially those who have done it, I've done a cosplay a few times. I think Josh has done it a couple of times as well. I know Avital and Kaytie have both done it probably accumulatively, or more than accumulatively the times that Josh and I have done it. But what would you guys recommend as far as like if you wanted to get into cosplay, if you want to kind of step into those clothes? What would you recommend in kind of starting that process?
It really kind of depends on the kind of characters and things that you're looking for, because there are some characters, like from an anime that's like a school uniform or something. While you maybe could make something like that, it might actually be cheaper and easier to buy it from an online place. It's probably going to be easier. But for people that are just starting out, if possible, go to thrift stores a lot. Hit up Goodwill, whatever other thrift store you want to go to. This cosplay that I am wearing right now, I kind of threw parts of it together in a day. But I went to Goodwill and I was like, I need this green sweater and I need a vest thing. So I found the green sweater. I found a vest that was too big for me. And there's fuzzy stuff here. For the podcast, you can't see it. There's fuzzy stuff here on the around the collar and next to the zipper. Yeah, the lapel. That was just another article of clothing that I bought and cut up, and we sewed it onto it. Now, for people that are starting out, they might not have sewing skills, right? But there are lots of simple tutorial videos on YouTube, even if you don't have sewing skills, for other things that you can do to alter articles of clothing that you find at thrift stores to make them look a bit more like the way you want them to. And also depending on the cosplay, say if you wanted to cosplay Dean Winchester from Supernatural, buy a flannel.
Right. And
wear
a
some blue
denim
jeans.
jacket.
Lots of layers. They like layers. I don't know why. The Winchesters like layers. And then whether or not you want to get into wigs is your decision. If you are actually going to get into wigs, maybe for your first wig, try out a really cheap Amazon one, even though they are not good quality, just to see how you deal with wigs. But if you really want to get into it after that, try looking at some better wig companies. I like Arta Wigs. I think I've heard Epic Cosplay is pretty good, but there are some better quality ones out there if that's something you want to get into. But start out simple, thrift things as much as possible. If you have sewing skills, that can help, but you don't have to. You don't necessarily have to. You can buy things, even if you just buy a costume and wear it. If it makes you happy and you like how you look doing that, then that's the point. That is the point. you don't have to be like, oh, I made every single bit of this cosplay myself. Like, that's great, but that's not the only way to do things. So I talked a lot.
I agree completely with that because I love cosplay, and every single one of my costumes, I have bought almost 99% of the pieces to it because I don't sew, I can't sew, I've tried it and I'm terrible. So I am perfectly fine with paying artisans for their time and product. And I have some really cool cosplay pieces because of it. I have an incredibly beautiful quiver that I got from a wonderful artist in Ukraine. It's lovely. It's absolute like heirloom quality, and I couldn't have made something like that if I had tried for 10 years. So don't let the people that are like, well, if you're a real cosplayer, you have to make it yourself. No, you don't. A real cosplayer is somebody who cosplays. End of the story. Like, if you want to buy all your pieces, have at it. If you want to make them, good for you, dude. Like, props to you.
That's great.
Like, don't let anybody try and gatekeep cosplaying for you and say that you can't be a cosplayer if you're not willing to build everything from scratch and literally pour blood, sweat, and tears into it.
So I have literally only cosplayed like once, so I can't speak as a cosplayer, but as a person who has seen other cosplayers, which we all have our opinions, I think one of the coolest things that I see is when people take a concept and spin it to what they can do. Like, I'm the Joker in pajamas. 'Cause I have pajamas and I can do face paint. That's awesome. Like, that is this, because that's a side of creativity. You may not find Master Chief's full-on suit or have the 3D printing or EVA foam skills to do it. But if you got the helmet, maybe it's Master Chief in dress blues. Like, I don't know. But what's great about that is that it'll make you, if you love it and you love how you feel in it, thumbs up from everyone around.
I would have to say, building off of what all of you have already said, which is fantastic. Also, don't allow the character itself or other people's opinions of what the character should look like to dictate what your costume looks like. Yeah. Like, if you really love, if I wanted to be Rey from Force Awakens, because I really love her character and I love her story arc, the fact that, I am not a lady, that I don't think that should dictate
exactly
how I celebrate my fandom for that character. And I think that should go for everybody. Like, if you have a character that you just love, I am a huge Critical Role fan. I love Yasha. She is hysterical. I love Ashley Johnson in general. She is an incredible actress. I would love to be a barbarian with black and white hair and crazy looking face paint and a huge sword in my hand, because that is BA. I'm just saying, like, just do what don't allow other people's expectations of what that character should look like to tell you what your character will look like and what your costume is going to look like. And you know what? I think that translates to our world of gaming as well. Don't allow somebody else's experience with a game to define how you play your game. Don't allow somebody to tell you, oh, well, that game is just not good. I am the biggest rebel without a cause. When somebody says, you know what, I didn't really like Seafall, don't play that game. I'm like, you know what? You just told me that I have to play that game now. For some reason, that is just this, that rebellious line that I walk is.
For the record, Seafall's fantastic.
It is fantastic. I agree with you 100%.
Is that the one with the pirate ships where you go through?
It's a legacy game.
It's a legacy game.
It's so good. Anyway, but I've had a lot of people who told me, hey, don't play Seafall. It's not a great game. And I've played at least the introduction to it, and I think it's great. But in general, I think that when you are, figuring out what sort of games you like to play, just because you played one type of deck building game and you hated it doesn't mean you're going to hate every type of deck building game. Maybe it was just the theme, or maybe there was a single mechanic that you didn't like. And it's the same way with role-playing games and other board games and costuming. Like, there are going to be times when you are dissatisfied with your experience, but don't allow that dissatisfaction to define every experience that you're going to have with that sort of thing from then on. You know, if you didn't like the steak at Texas Roadhouse, go to a different steakhouse. Like, I'm just saying, like, try a different game, try a different costume, that sort of thing. So,
Yeah, and just one last thing about the cosplay and the putting character concepts to how you want to do them. Like, I'm cosplaying a character, and the reference that we have is a Minecraft skin. You
Okay.
can interpret that so many ways, like,
so you have to build it out of cardboard, and it has to be
right, like, I gotta be square, you know?
Right.
So, like,
Done in 1 foot by 1 foot blocks.
Yeah, that's right.
you make that concept what you will. And also, there are so many tutorial videos.
Hello.
Wonderful celebrity guests as soon as you get the opportunity. Some have to leave as early as 3 p.m. So don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime chance to meet some amazing people. Also, at 2 p.m. on the main stage is the Kids Cosplay Contest, and 3 o'clock is the finale of Squid Games.
Nice.
Yay, thank you, announcer. No, cosplay, if you want to get into doing things and making things, there are so many great tutorials out there. Just go to YouTube, look things up. There are many beginner things and tips and tricks. Just check it out. The internet is full of wonderful resources. And for gaming, too. Like, there's all kinds of great stuff out there.
All right. Wow. Well, that was like a whole 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I was worried at 15.
Okay.
I always get worried at 15. I'm like, are we going to be able to keep talking? Oh, wait. That's right. I forget who we are. We're always going to keep talking. Anyhow, before I decide to lose all of my English language today,
I got a question.
I have a question, too.
Well, okay.
What's your question?
What games are we playing right now?
Oh, well, let's see.
None. We're podcasting.
Yeah.
Oh,
You caught me off guard with that one.
I was like, I'm not playing any game.
I just started playing Halo 5 Guardians. I had not played Halo 5 Guardians. I love it so far. I really love the fact that Nathan Fillion is Buck in Halo 5 Guardians, because I love Nathan Fillion.
Yep.
Just played Wingspan. Pathfinder, Age of Ashes. And I'm prepping for a homebrew Dungeons & Dragons game in the fall. That I'm going to run, obviously, because...
Obviously.
Sure. I am currently in a mostly Pathfinder, slightly homebrewed role-playing game that my husband runs. I play a lot of Minecraft on my Twitch streams. Also, a game I just found again that is very nostalgic from when I played it as a kid is The Logical Journey of the Zombinis.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone ever played that game as a kid, but it's supposed to, like, sort of teach you critical thinking skills, and I just had so much fun with it, and I found it again, and I've been playing it on my Twitch streams also.
Nice.
It's been really fun, actually.
So I've also been kind of on the nostalgia train myself. Switch released the online plus what have you with N64 games, and I have been playing Paper Mario so much.
Nice.
They have Paper Mario on
Yes, the original Paper Mario. So I've been playing the original Paper Mario. And then also, since I'm primarily a Switch gamer, I've also been playing Oxenfree, which is a cross-platform game. It's on Switch, it's on PC. It's really spooky, but it's a side scroller, and it's just this really like uneasy, unsettling kind of game. And then when you get to the end of the game, you're like, wow, I wasn't expecting it to go that direction at all, but here we are. It's really fun. It has a really nice soundtrack if you're into good soundtracks for games. The band Scientific, SC and TFC, they actually did the soundtrack for it. So if you like kind of spooky stuff with no like nothing gory, no jump scares, that kind of thing, just kind of spooky, creepy ambiance, totally check out Oxenfree.
So I'm doing a Pathfinder First Edition game as a player that one of our hosts, Lance, is running. I am running the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Age of Ashes Adventure Path. And then from a board game perspective, we just tried out Level 20 and Goblin Firework Fight.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Those were way more fun than they probably should have been. And from a video game perspective, I just completed the main story in Horizon Forbidden West on PlayStation 5. I am currently in Mass Effect 3 from the Mass Effect Legendary Edition at a level 57 out of 60, so I'm really enjoying that. I also have WWE 2K22, and I picked up Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which is the fantasy-themed Borderlands expansion that's available.
It looks cool. I've actually seen it played on streams.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun, and I have it on my PC. I just haven't started it yet. And then my wife and daughter are playing a lot of Animal Crossing on Switch.
Yay!
You can't go wrong with Animal Crossing on Switch. You really can't. It's such a good, like, wholesome, fun time. Did you have a bad day? Let's go talk to our animal buddies. It's always a good day in Animal Crossing. Like,
I gave my Switch to my nephew, and when I was over there a couple months back, he's like, let's play Animal Crossing. It's still my island. He's just added like his profile and some of his friends. So mine profile was still on there, so I logged in on mine, and I'm like going around and talking to all the villagers like, Avital, it's been 9 months. Wow. And I'm like, sorry.
Oh, man. That's awesome. Well, so the last thing that we like to do on the Established Facts, and the reason that we have the name The Established Facts, is because at the end of every episode, we kind of culminate all of our ideas, or maybe like a funny quip or something like that at the end to kind of be our tagline, and that is our established fact for the episode. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and if I am, it doesn't matter because I'm saying it anyway.
Okay.
I believe this is episode 228 of the Established Facts.
That sounds right.
I think that's
a lot
right.
of episodes.
Yes. So, on episode 228 of the Established Facts, we have 2 facts.
Ooh.
Number 1, first fact, step 1, find a game box. Step 2, find a stranger. Step 3, make a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
The second one is way better. The newest introduced character in the Halo franchise, Dress Blue's Master Chief. That's right. Thank you guys so much for joining us on episode 228 of the Established Facts here live at Indy PopCon 2022. We love you all. We hope you had a good time, and we will check you later.
Bye.
Deuces. And that crowd goes wild.